I think the recording has started, so I'll hand over to the chair, Councillor Bella.
Thank you, Naz. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's meeting of the Licensing Committee. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be available for public viewing. Clerk, have we received any apologies for absence?
We've got apologies from Councillor Goodall, Councillor Rice and Councillor Mark Blake.
Thank you. Are there any items for urgent business?
There are no urgent items listed, Chair.
And do we have any declarations of interest?
Yes, I'm a trustee and trustee of Alexandra Palace Palace and Park Charitable Trust and a director of Alexandra Palace Trading Limited, which is mentioned within the report as there are exhibition fees paid, I believe.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else? No. So we'll move on to deputations. We have a deputation from Mr. Francis Wilkinson. You have 3 minutes to address the committee, Mr. Wilkinson. Can you hear us, Mr. Wilkinson?
Sounds like a message on chat.
Yes, I think so. I don't know how you.
Is she on mute?
No,
Are we on mute?
no, we're not on mute. Mr. Wilkinson, can you hear us? Mr. Wilkinson? Mr. Britton, can you hear us?
I can hear you, yes. I'm just sending a text message to Francis to see if he's we spoke a few moments ago.
That looks nice.
We can see his dinner. Looks like
Okay, I'm very sorry. I hope I now have sound. This is Francis Wilkinson. Can I start?
Yes, you may start, but we can't see you, and we can see your dinner table. So I perhaps you might want to flip the camera around.
Yes, I've absolutely no idea how to do that. I have obviously touched something I shouldn't have touched. I can go and find somebody who can put it right, though. Would you like me to do that?
I think it might not be Francis's dinner table.
It is in fact my dinner table. So I'll just get somebody who can change it round. Excuse me.
Mr. Wilkinson.
ice cream.
It's always nicer to see the people.
Was it crisps? Actually, it's probably crisps.
It doesn't look like crisps.
No, it looks like crisps.
No, it looks like crisps.
I know.
Yeah.
And biscuits. Anyway, look nice, whatever it is.
Should have
Because the meeting it is.
Exactly, yeah.
I've got a picture of my dinner table. I've got a picture of me. That's it. Can you see me now?
Yes, we can. You have 3 minutes.
I'm very sorry about that. So I'm Francis Wilkinson, Secretary of the Highgate Society and a member of the Committee of the Highgate Neighbourhood Forum. And this representation is made on behalf of both organisations. Most of what I shall say is in the written representation, which I believe you have. I hope you have anyway. We know of a number of occasions. Can I perhaps just check that you do have the written representation?
We do.
Wonderful. We know of a number of occasions when local residents have found out about licensing applications too late to make representations to you. I can give the examples if it's important. That's because the current arrangements for notifying applications are ineffective. That is contrary both to Haringate's constitution and its licensing policy. So the constitution, as updated last May, states that it is one of its principal purposes, in fact it's the first one, to support the active involvement of citizens in the process of local authority decision making. And the licensing policy goes further. At paragraph 13.1, this authority considers it important that the local community is fully aware of local licensing applications being made within its area. But the current process isn't working. Why not? First, because the notification is only by an A4 notice on the premises, which is very easy to miss, an advertisement in a local paper, very old-fashioned, few people read them, and if they do, they don't read the small print notices, and by being put on the council's website. Then at paragraph 23.4 of the licensing policy, residents are advised to regularly check the council's register of licensing applications. As most people will be affected by an application very occasionally, perhaps every few years, this is quite unrealistic advice. No resident is likely to do a weekly check, which is what would be required, just on the off chance of a licensing application that is relevant to them. So how can this be put right? We make two alternative proposals. The first, local residents are notified of licensing applications as they are for planning applications, a long established process. I'm sure it doesn't work perfectly, but it certainly works better. And or that residents and businesses be able to sign up for licensing alerts in their ward. This approach has been taken by Camden following our deputation to them and works well. Your licensing officer, Dahlia Barris, who's here this evening, says she has asked for this second alternative, but she can't say if or when it will happen. She further says that this committee has no say in whether or when that will happen. Surely that can't be right. We ask that this committee, as the responsible committee for licensing policy, ensures that the arrangements are consistent with the council's constitution and its licensing policy, and ask for one or indeed both of the proposed solutions to be implemented with a date for the implementation which provides some sort of commitment to this committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Does the committee have any questions for Mr. Wilkinson? Go ahead.
Can I just ask, you mentioned the example of Camden. Have you got any other examples? Because I was thinking of, for example, the weekly email that comes from comms, and I wondered whether it could be included in that, have a separate email for planning and licensing. I just wondered whether that might be less cumbersome for the team. I don't know.
So yes, we understand there is a weekly email to councillors about licensing matters, which doesn't currently go to any community organisations or individuals. Now, of course, the Neighbourhood Forum is a statutory organisation, and the Highgate Society is a quite large and long established organisation, but we don't cover everybody. It's quite possible that there will be people who will be affected by licensing applications who don't know about us and who we don't know about. So while that would certainly be an improvement if we were included in that circulation, if the two organisations were included in that, and I could be on behalf of the Highgate Society, it wouldn't fully address the problem.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson. Are there any other questions? Councillor Bartlett?
Yeah, I just wondered, you mentioned a couple of examples where people had found out too late in order to raise objections. I just wondered if you could give one or two of those.
Yes, so a recent one in Haringey was in Archway Road, where there was, and Dahlia Barrett knows all about this, where there was what is actually now open, a place that applied for an all-night refreshment house license, I believe it's called, so that they could serve food all night. It's in an area that is largely residential, apart from the shops on Archway Road, and there is nothing else anywhere near it that opens all night. There is a club that opens quite late, which is a few doors away, and we were considered. There are various disorder problems in relation to outside that club, and the residents were very concerned that the provision of all-night food very nearby the club would result in an increase to that disorder, quite apart from the smells and so on that come. So there were local, but they didn't know about it at all. And the only way it was picked up was by my doing a check on the Haringey website and discovering that this application was being made. And I think we had the support of your licensing officers in, it may be that some councillors here this evening were at that hearing, that in opposing the hours that were proposed. So that's one. Another one, which is actually in Camden, although it's part of it is it's a Camden licensing case, although part of the premises are in Haringey, is the Gatehouse. Now the Gatehouse applied to, in the middle of Highgate, you know, at the roundabout, applied to extend its premises very considerably to take over an adjacent restaurant. Not something we objected to in principle, but again, we only found out at the last minute. And another example is, although not in Haringey at all, is the application to greatly extend the hours when there could, and the days when there could be concerts in Kenwood. And in fact, we were too late by the time we found out about that. But fortunately, the Heath and Hampstead Society had found out in time, and so there was a representation that went in. So there are three, all recent examples in the last year.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson. Are there any further questions for Mr. Wilkinson? Councillor Blake.
So, in terms of your proposal, Mr. Wilkinson, for notification, I mean, are you saying people within, what's the radius that you are saying people should be notified?
I don't have a particular view, but you and certainly other councillors will be familiar with the arrangements for planning applications. And whatever the rules are about how those are distributed to neighbours could be applied.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. I have one final question for you, Mr. Wilkinson. So you've presented two potential options for consideration, and I understand you've been looking into what other councils have been doing. Have you looked into the comparative costs of the two options?
No, I mean, it seems clear to us, though, that the Camden solution, that is to say, I can sign up to have Highgate applications notified to me, is, once it's set up, practically free to operate, because it'll be done automatically by the machine. So obviously there will be a software cost in setting up, there will be an upfront cost and time and so on, but then it's going to be effectively free. Obviously there's IT maintenance, but this isn't going to add significantly to that. Whereas circulating applications to local residents is a permanent recurring cost that the council would have to meet. The trouble is that, I mean, Darlingbarrett may have an update on this, but I was told that we don't know when or if we're actually going to get the ability to request these notifications, to sign up for the alerts. So meanwhile, there needs to be something. And the ideal situation, as far as we're concerned, would be that until the alert system is set up, there should be notification by paper to neighbours. Does that answer the question?
Yes, that was very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson. Ms. Barrett, would you like to provide a response?
I prefer if I was asked a particular question, so I can certainly give a summary. So the requirements that are set out in the Licensing Act is for the applicant to place the blue notice on their premises. That gives an indication of what it is that they've actually applied for. and the same notice goes in a local newspaper. That's outside of our discretion as a council. That's a national requirement. We can't mess about with that. We've got no ability to change that whatsoever. What I have said to Mr. Wilkinson is a couple of things. So I have said to him that we have in the past trialed sending out letters to addresses in a given radius to a premises. That just ended up with me needing to spend time on a weekend responding back to the complaints that generated from the residents who then complained that they weren't included in that radius and didn't receive any kind of a written notification from us. It proved to be counterproductive. It did not yield any further representations on licensing applications at the time. And granted, this was probably in around, I think that's been 2007, 2008 period. We tried that. It didn't really yield anything further, to be honest. What we are looking at as part of a wish list going forward, so the whole of regulatory services, which licensing sits under, we are having to move from our current IT platform, which is M3, and we are currently looking, there is a project group that's currently looking at finding a new platform. So I have put on the licensing wish list, if possible, if we could have a bit of software incorporated into, you know, the main things that we need. The wish list would be if we could have something that would do this automatic generation, you know, to given or known residents associations and groups. But that is just a wish list. I mean, I'm not going to, you know, it's not something I'm saying we must have it, because we really don't. And you know, we've got to think about the cost of that and so forth as well. At present time, anybody that is wishing to be notified, sorry, anyone who's wishing to be notified of applications in their area is able to drop a line into the licensing inbox. Sorry, I'm fighting a chest infection. Is able to drop a line into the licensing inbox, and we will endeavour to get the, you know, to send out the link to residents. The link doesn't change, so hence the reason why we say, you know, you can just click on that link as often as you like to see when something comes up. It is really difficult for my small team to take on, remembering that we need to be sending out notifications to, you know, lots of different groups and so forth, yeah, over and above the statutory stakeholders that we are required to ensure has sight of the applications. It's not that we wouldn't want to do it, we just don't have the resources in order to do so, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Are there any further comments or questions from the committee, Councillor Amin?
Can I just ask, Adelia, I understand it's difficult, and you're suffering as well, to make matters worse. So I hope we can be brief about all this. Is it possible, for example, I mean, this is as a deputation, and Highgate specifically, the Society have asked specifically to be on it. Is it possible to put them on the list? I mean, we get those emails, so I just feel it's something to explore. Where a group comes in for specific information, it seems to me it's not a difficult thing once you add them to the list, and it's up to them to weave them way through it for their own relevant applications in their area. It seems a shame for us not to be able to respond while we're waiting for this wish list, if it ever comes about, you know, this wish list thing to be implemented. It just seems a shame, that's all.
Okay, so that weekly list that's been referred to, that's the members' weekly list. That's not in my control. I just pass on, in fact, I don't pass it on at all. The link that is on the website is what the comms team use every week, and just insert that link, because obviously my team updates it every day, that if each and every day that we get an application in, it has to be updated. We're required to do that by law. So that link is then sent around by the comms team. I don't actually do the weekly list around to members at all myself. It comes directly from the comms team.
Can I just
Councillor
ask,
Amin, yes?
can I just ask if it's possible for the chair to ask the comms team to put them on the mailing list for that list? I mean, it's not cease. It doesn't have to be.
Can we not have more of a discussion amongst the committee about this?
Of course,
before a decision is actually made.
Okay.
I mean, I think surely the committee ourselves, we want to have a discussion about this.
Again, I just asked this question just because
We're not going to take a decision on this matter now, but if there are views, it would be useful.
I was just thinking that it seems a shame not to implement something which would actually benefit an area and where people are actually interested. I would love it if people in my own ward really ask for this information, and I would love them to respond. So from my perspective, the more we can involve people, the better. We only get a better system. So I just wonder whether, as a chair, after our discussion, yes or no, but I just wonder whether the chair could ask for this to happen.
Chair, can I just also say that the same, you know, the link was also shared. I believe we got the citizens panel and the team that was engaging in that way. So they also have the link and share it around to, you know, the people that are assigned to the citizen panel, or what it's now been changed into. And in very much the same way, we know there's an active residents or the Ladder Safety Community Partnership in Green Lanes. And again, they have the link and they will check on the link, you know, every so often for any applications in the Green Lanes area, and will, as a result of that, then pick up the phone and talk to me and say, you know, can we have some more information about this and so forth. So there is a mechanism in place at this moment in time within the resources that we have.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Any further comments, questions on this item? Councillor Weston?
I think it's helpful for us to say as a committee, if that's the view of the committee, that we'd like this to be explored further by the cabinet and officers, because, you know, I agree with Kaushika that it's useful if there is a mechanism that people can be alerted, but equally there are lots of licensing applications all the time and we can't overburden what's already a stretched team. So any response would need to be proportionate. And also the council's got commitments to reducing our carbon emissions and so forth. So, you know, things like going around putting papers through doors, which creates failure in her team by people complaining and doesn't necessarily result in more people making representations, would be, you know, our commitments to sort of improving our environment would mitigate against that, I would have thought as well. But I think if there is an electronic system that can be used, that people can sign up to if they are interested, that wouldn't be too onerous for the team, then, you know, I'd be in favour of us recommending, you know, that be explored to the relevant cabinet member and officers.
Councillor Blake,
well, I mean, as the chair of planning, of course, we get, you know, comments and objections and support all the time, and I know, I mean, I go through them all and read them. So I do understand how much work it is. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that's got to be the deciding factor. On the other hand, I think we just need to weigh it up. So I do agree with what Ellen's saying. So it isn't something I'm opposed to, but I do want to know, and it's got to be something that works, and has got to be something that, you know, that works, and that we residents, because otherwise we still get complaints all the time on the planning committee that they didn't know anything about this development, they didn't receive anything, whatever. So, you know, I think we have to think about it and make sure that it's something that works. You know, businesses change and evolve and operate, and I think we have to weigh that up as well in terms of so, you know, I think personally I would feel a bit more comfortable if we had a bit more discussion and that it went to the cabinet. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Blake. Thank you, Councillor Weston. In that case, I think we can all agree that we'll minute that as a committee, we recommend to the Cabinet and the licensing team to explore further whether there is a feasible solution that will address the concerns that have been brought to our attention. So on that note, thank you to Mr. Wilkinson for joining us. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the committee, but you are not obliged to do so. So we'll leave it to you to decide how you'd like to spend the rest of your evening.
Chair.
Thank you very much for listening to us, and thank you for that invitation.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson.
I was just going to say it would be helpful to have feedback so that the committee is informed about what is going to happen.
We'll come back to this in a future meeting. Thank you, Councillor. So we'll draw to an end here on this particular point. We'll move now to item 6 on the agenda, which relates to the minutes. Can we indicate the minutes of the licensing committee held on 22nd June 2023 and 10th June 2023 are a correct record? Yes. And we also note the minutes from the licensing subcommittee and the special licensing subcommittee from January 2023. We'll now move on to item 7 on the agenda, which relates to the review of fees and charges for 2024-2025 in relation to licenses. Ms. Barrett, we've received the report in advance and we've all read it. I'm conscious you're somewhat unwell, so please don't feel obliged to cover the report in great detail. But do give us your summary of the report.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is really a business as usual report, Chair, because it comes before the licensing committee each year, and it is seeking permission or seeking agreement for a 7% inflationary increase on the discretionary fees only that the council is able to set for 2024-25. Also at section 2.12, Chair, we're asking for the introduction of new fees for market operator license applications. We are seeing, Chair, and if I give a bit of background history to this, so many years ago, members encouraged and wanted to have or supported a resident who wanted to start operating the Middleton Road market. And that market has continued to grow and flourish over the years. In more recent times, we've had the Tottenham Regen team who have sought to pull together a market in Tottenham Green East, on Town Hall Approach Road, and that has also been taking place over the last few years. We are now at a stage where obviously as part of the manifesto there is the desire for the council to have more markets in the borough. We're not a market borough by norm, and so, you know, for us to be branching out in this way, there is at the moment a study being undertaken that's looking at what residents and businesses are wanting out of markets in the borough as a whole. What we're finding in licensing, however, is that the residents that have been empowered now feel that, you know, any place that they wish to hold a market, they should have the right to do so. And so we are getting various requests for Scotland Green to be used. We've got Muswell Hill as well, the St James's Square, which is also used for markets. And there is another area, slips my mind at the moment. That's all coming online from the prospective operator. At the moment, it's only one in particular resident that's continuing to do this, but the fact remains that that operator doesn't actually have any kind of a contract with the council, doesn't actually get given any kind of permission of any kind, other than the fact that we have taken it upon ourselves as the service to ensure that highways and all other services are happy with that particular area being closed off and used for a market on that particular day. So we're trying to redress that issue really, and to have a formal setting put in place for individuals if they're wishing to operate a market, that they fill in an application form and pay a fee for that, which will be a separate matter to the actual individuals who are then vetted by the operator to come and actually take part on the market days themselves. It was also something that HMRC asked us about, because obviously we would have the details of the individual traders that we've licensed, but not the actual market operator details to pass on to HMRC as well. So it wasn't coming up when we were being audited year to year. So we're trying to address that too. So as it stands today, just to make clear, so the Licensing Act fees and the Gambling Act fees are not part of this 7% increase at all, because we're already at the fee maximums on the Gambling Act, and the Licensing Act fees are already set by the Secretary of State, so we don't touch those at all. So you're really looking at your street trading costs, massage and special treatment type of licenses, pet shops, on animal activities, those kind of licenses, and scrap metal really kind of licenses that we are looking to increase at an RPI of 7%, Chair. We have done some benchmarking, but benchmarking isn't always the best way through this, because in particular with street trading, the legislation requires that we are cost neutral. So nothing involving street trading should be coming out of the public's purse. It's got to wash its own face. And, you know, the 7% increase this year will help us to do that. I have asked that for next year, we work with the finance team to take a deeper dive into street trading costs to see, you know, how we fared really the first year with the increase in markets and market days being increased as well by the government, to see really if what we're charging is really keeping in line with our full cost, or we need to you know, look to do a further increase going forward. Chair, I'm just trying to think if there's anything further. No, I think that's it, Chair. So really what we're asking for is that section 2 there, which is to agree an increase of the 7% and for the introduction of the new market operator license application with the commensurate fee as set out 5.7 on the report.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Questions? I know Councillor Peacock has a question.
David, I'm very concerned about the markets, because I have a designated area like Scotland Green. It was a closure of the road there, but then other people were selling stuff outside of that immediate area. Is there anything in the form that the people have to fill in to make sure that they prevent other people from using the area? I mean, look, the car boot sale in Tottenham Sports Centre, people continually put stuff on the railings or further along the road, and nobody seems to bother about it, and I have to continually get officers to go along there and chase it up. And the market man that hires the sports centre says it's nothing to do with him, but it should be. It should be that there is legislation to make sure that there's no overspill outside. And that's what's happening it happened at Scotland Green. People using the advantage of the Christmas fair to sell their wares, but not actually in the road itself, but in the road on the pavements leading to the road. And that's exactly what happens at the car boot sale.
I think, Chair, this is the problem that we are going to see going forward. Enforcement of markets and enforcement of people illegally street trading, you know, is a real challenge for us. You know, Councillor Peacock's right. I'm aware of the issues that happen on a Thursday at that car boot sale on the sports ground there, and equally what happens at the car boot sale on White Hart Lane. And in a way, the operators are correct. If what happens within the grounds is their responsibility, what happens outside on the highway is actually down to us as a council to actually enforce against. And I think, if we don't have enough resources, and if it means that we are really going to be a committed borough around markets and wanting markets to pop up everywhere all over the borough, then we need to therefore step up our enforcement arm as well, which may mean us needing to actually consider increasing the fees further, because it all has to come out of the street trading budget to be able to do that enforcement, to be honest. So yeah, it's something that we do need to keep an eye on, Councillor, definitely.
Thank you, Ms Barrett. Councillor Weston.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Dale. I'm on 5.6, it's related. So 5.6 talks about the traders that do in pop-up markets having a subsidised fee, and that will be increasing by 7% in line with inflation. Will that remove the subsidy then, or will there still be a subsidy for those traders?
Right. So this has been a real issue actually, because what we found is that people want to be able to come and trade in Haringey, but they don't want to have to pay a cost to come and do that trading on the street. And so, yes, there was a subsidy at one point, which, for many years, they were able to have trade for £4 a day, something like that, which is quite ridiculous. Now, the fee structure that we put in place is that a trader can apply for 3 days at a particular location. We were going to just set it for just newcomers to be able to do that. But then, we thought your regulars have become accustomed to it now as well. So it'd be hard for us to stop, to pull that offer from them. So it's 3 days is the subsidy now. 3 days of trading at a particular pop-up market location is what they're able to do.
And at what point are we going to be able to review that then? Because, as I understand the principle that you set out in your report about, we should be looking at full cost recovery as the guiding principle. Well, we're not looking at full cost recovery. And I've got sympathy for people who want to sell their stuff for basically free, but they can't, can they? And presumably they're keen to keep coming back to those locations because it's so cheap for them to sell there. So, I just wonder, what is the process for reviewing this? Not because I want to discourage people, not because I want to punish people, but there's a fairness point here, isn't there? And there's also a legal point, which is if we should be seeking full cost recovery, we should be seeking full cost recovery.
The argument will be, Councillor, is that if we increase the fees, then nobody will be able to trade in the borough, and the whole market strategy will fall to the wayside before it's begun. And as it's a manifesto requirement, the fact that there is this piece of work going on at the moment, one thing that they have already said is the offer of the 3 dates does capture people. It does capture traders, and they do feel that they're getting something out of it. So yeah, as a going forward,
cheap trading out of it. So yeah, we know what they're getting out of it, and fair play, that's their business. But I think it's something that bears consideration, because I'd also be interested to know, and obviously this would be for a different forum, on the demographics of those people that do get these licenses to trade. I wonder what, who is benefiting from the offer that the council is giving.
Absolutely agree, Councillor. And I see who goes where. So whereas we have a visiting French market that will go through Muswell Hill, and the local Muswell Hill creatives, and they are local people who come to sell their wares. Whereas we do see that, for instance, the Middleton Road Market and the ones in Tottenham and so forth, it's always the same traders that come to those particular markets. So it does beg the question, is there room then for newcomers or people? How do they get on? Because if they're not in with the market operator, how do they then, how are they going to get their foot in the door, really? So yeah, it's something that I've raised with our regen team, because I know they're very keen on pushing through on the markets things. But yes, something that I'm aware of.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Any further questions for Ms. Barrett? Councillor Bartlett.
Yeah, this is probably a stupid question actually, but is this just markets on streets rather than anything that happens in kind of parks or other venues and so on? It doesn't.
That's not a stupid question. It's not a stupid question at all. So the street trading is literally anything that takes place on the public highway. So if it's in an enclosed area, in a park area, it's not covered by this at all. Yeah, on private land, it's not really covered by this. So the car boots on White Hart Lane, for instance, or in the Tottenham Sports Centre is not covered by this at all.
And so is that charging regime completely separate, and that's up to the people running it, or is that?
We don't get involved. Yeah, we don't get involved in those at all, because they're not caught by the legislation.
And just.
But if it's in the Parks Department charge.
Yeah.
Parks Department will do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and just on that point, so the £175 initial fee, has that been arrived at because that covers the current cost to your department from this?
Yes. So that's looking at the consultation and having the transport planning officer having to go to site to check and see if it's going to impact on any of the current LTNs, and if it's going to impact on traffic and all that sort of thing, if we were to allow markets in that particular location. So yeah.
Does that cover road closure as well?
No, they'd need to apply for the road closure separately. But what I've noticed is that they will put in for that road closure as a street party, which means it's a freebie. So, again, it's it's a difficult one, because obviously that's not my area of things, but yeah.
I didn't know that.
Councillor Ami?
Yeah, I was just thinking, it's quite interesting actually. Is the points raised by Councillor Weston, that we do need to think about it, because if we're not careful, we'll just continue to do what we've done. And I think, and I was thinking of the Tottenham regen supported market. It's never ever busy, ever, and it's highly expensive. It's quite exclusive actually, and I worry a little bit about it, because if you don't get new people involved, then you don't get new people going to the market. So really it is about variety. So it seems to me a shame that we're not allowing a further change in it all. And so I just wondered whether it's possible to do a phased approach, whether this year it says what it is, but next year we are absolutely clear that it will have to start next year maybe a little higher, and then the year after higher, because I think it seems to me otherwise what we're doing is the public purse is it's the council taxpayers who are subsidising those subsidies, and we're not effectively managing that process, because we're not bringing in new people, new users, new buyers, some change that makes it relevant to our areas.
Can I have sure, go ahead.
We've just had consultation about the petition, and they've spoke about Camden and how Camden does certain things. What about other boroughs? How do they address this situation? Do they address it differently to us?
Yeah, so Haringey, we are in a position when we're the only borough, with our neighbouring boroughs are all market boroughs. We're not a market borough. So they already have lively markets which are already financed, because obviously it's part of their corporate spend on markets. We're not in that position here in Haringey. And, obviously we're just now beginning to branch out to say we want to do markets as a real thing here in the borough. So we are looking to learn from our neighbouring boroughs and to build on that going forward. at this moment in time, the only place, the only location that actually has planning permission as a market is actually the Tottenham Green location that has planning permission to be a market. I suppose the good part, the good thing we've learned is that we were concerned up until this point that the neighbouring boroughs who've all got charter markets, charter rights for their markets, were going to be able to require us to pay them if we were operating a market on a day when their market was operating. But after speaking with NABMA, who is the National Association of Markets, they've advised us that actually, because if we continue to operate markets under the London Local Authorities Act 1990 and license each individual trader, we then don't impinge on the market rights for the neighbouring boroughs, so they cannot levy a charge against us if we want to run a market on a Saturday and their market is on the Saturday as well. So, which was it was a saving grace really, because I think it like opened the floodgates now.
Yeah, any further questions?
I've got a question that isn't on markets, if that's all right. If anybody else has got market questions.
I was just gonna ask whether, because it feels like this is quite a big change for the borough from what you said, and quite a big issue, whether there was any capacity to take it forward in a different way, not necessarily just specifically our committee, because it's obviously a bigger question, and as we say about demographics, who's doing it, what the council want, I just wonder what the process then is for
what exactly was the wording in the manifesto? Don't I can't remember. Was that something we inspired?
I can advise. So obviously we have a street trading policy in place, and that street trading policy is very, very old. I am in the process of revising that street trading policy, and I'm going to be including a little bit in there on markets going forward. But what I am hoping to make use of is the consultation that the Regen team have had ongoing since December, I believe. So they've contracted a company that's been out there on the ground talking to people about what their expectation is of markets and, and all that sort of thing. So I'm hoping to gather in all those viewpoints really to help me when I'm rewriting the street trading policy, and we'll be incorporating something around market operation, markets taking place in the borough and so forth. And as much as I do upset people, because I know Holcombe Market is being called a market, but technically it's not a market, and it always does upset people when I make that clear. And in similar ways, we have our street trading sites, the stores that's actually off the High Road and Wood Green High Road. They are not markets, and they're they are just street trading sites, So you can imagine the company that was going to do it. Well, what about your existing market stores off the High Road? We don't have any.
Thank you, Ms. Barrows.
But yeah.
Well, thanks, Dale. My question's on 5.3 around massage and special treatment businesses. Yeah. And I was just wondering, just for information, I suppose, to start with, just why they wouldn't experience the increase in fees until September, whereas other license holders are going to get it on a monthly basis, because I'm sure there's good reason for it, but it just feels like that's half a year where people are not, those license holders are not paying the increased rates that others would be.
No, so their licenses become due, they have to be renewed by the 31st of September each year. So that's when they then pay that increased fee for their next license that they then apply for. Again, massage and special treatment fees, we are seeing an increase in businesses now determine that they are going to be employing people individually as their own sole trader, and what they are doing is getting each of those individual people to get themselves signed up to an affiliated body, and in doing so it means that they then don't pay the fee. So we're seeing budgets going down on massage and special treatment premises at the moment, and we're getting more work because if I can think of one premises at the moment that's got nearly 30 people on their books as therapists that they have, you know, able to offer treatments on their premises, and they have not paid a fee for that license, and we're duty bound to.
And is that we can deal with through our licensing through changing our policy, or is that a legislative thing that we can't
It's
avoid?
legislative. So the legislation says that if they have got this exemption, if they've signed up to an affiliated body, a recognised body, then we can't assign a fee to their premises, basically. So, but we are definitely seeing an increase. A lot of premises are all cottoning onto that. You know, in the last couple of years, we've seen a real increase in that.
Thanks, Ms. Barrett. Councillor Da Costa.
Sorry, Dalia, to ask a question because I want to try and reduce the strain on your throat. Apologies. When you say a recognised body, what bodies are recognised? So are those bodies set out in legislation, or can we be flexible and say actually it should be X, Y, and Z organisation?
Right. So we still do belong to the Pan London Massage and Special Treatment Group, and that group used to assign it per borough to investigate a particular therapist body that would apply for an exemption. And as of last year, that changed, and it's now down to us as individual boroughs to take on board who we want or which bodies we feel to be exempted. But we've tried still to stick to exactly what all our neighbours are doing as well. And so, you know, I suppose that the thing is that they meet the criteria that's been set to be exempted under the Act, but it really is a get out clause for them in terms of just sidestepping, you know, the fight. If they do massage, they're looking at paying £500 and odd a therapist. So if you've got 20 odd people there, they have sidestepped that £520 odd per person all the way round, basically.
So we could individually say that actually we will base, and I'm just using as an example, the HCP, the Healthcare Professionals Council. We could potentially say, in our view, it should be the HCPC. To join the HCPC is actually quite difficult because you have to hit certain criteria. So as a council, we could say you have to join this organisation. If they don't, therefore we can charge. So I think it might be. I mean, HCPC might be a bit of a stretch, but.
There are quite a few, councillor. There's at least 20 odd or so on the list at the moment of exempted bodies that people can join. And, you know, I've earmarked this year to deal with the street trading policy revision. And I think I will need to be looking at the massage and special treatment policy revision thereafter. And hopefully by then we will know what's happening with the injectables and Botox and all the rest of it, and whether that's coming to the local authorities to deal with, you know, by the end of the year.
Councillor Weston.
I think that'd be really welcome, because I'd also be concerned about the implications of modern slavery if there's a means for people to be employed in these kinds of businesses and escape regulation essentially by signing up to a notional body that is sort of recognised but might not be. You know, I mean, I think there are some real concerns around human rights and violations and criminal activity there as well. So support what you said. I know how busy you are, but if there is a way that we can help you to sort of bring that up the agenda, then I think it would be worth us doing it.
Okay, I'll take that on board. Yeah.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Councillor Barrett? Sorry, for Miss Barrett. Any other questions for Miss Barrett?
No.
I have one final question. It's quite minor. It's about section 7.1 of the report. So this states that the council is committed to updating its standard street trading conditions, and this includes a commitment to provide guidance to street traders. I was wondering if there are particular matters the council intends to develop guidance for street traders on. Is it limited purely to environmental issues? Are there specific environmental issues that the council feels that the street traders need guidance on?
Right, so we already have the conditions, and that's something that will be coming before yourselves to look at, the street trading conditions, and there's about 60 or so of them there. But as legislation has changed, like for instance, I think it was last year we had the single-use plastic and so forth being brought in, and of course that impacted on the street traders with them, you know, needing to rethink handing over things in a plastic bag to their customers and that sort of thing. So we tried to keep abreast with all of that and make sure that the existing street traders, and when I say the existing ones, I'm meaning in particular the licensed ones off Wood Green High Road, that they are complying with whatever changes have come into place as we've gone forward. To be honest, the plastic has been the main one that's come into effect. We don't, as a borough, for instance, have people that, you know, apart from, I suppose, on Spurs days, we have the food traders there, but then the food safety team will go in and do whatever assessments and checks on them on match and event days.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. We now have a motion to adopt, and the motion essentially is, do we agree that the licensing committee approves fees set out in Appendix 1, i.e. an increase of 7% on existing discretionary fees for 2024-2025 and the introduction of a new market operator license application fee as set out in section 5.7 of the report. We also note that licensing active gambling premises are already set statutory maximums and make up a significant proportion of the fees collected. And we note that the pavement license fees will be presented in a separate report following the Levelling Up Act receiving royal assent in October 2023. Fees are not stipulated in the Act. At the time of writing of this report, the government has not released any regulations or guidance on this new regime. The temporary pavement license provisions remain in place under the Business and Planning Act 2020 as amended. Do we agree with that motion?
Agreed.
Thank you, everyone. So this brings this item to a close. The last item on the agenda is new items of urgent business. Are there any new items of urgent business?
Not officially no new items, but there is one minor unofficial item. I understand that Councillor Blake cannot make the 15 January subcommittee, so I'm proposing that Councillor Bartlett, if you could swap for the 26th of February for the 15th of January.
Well, you've got planning as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
15. Oh, I'm already down for it, sorry. I've got to volunteer, but
What day is it?
15th of January, but we need trained members. We've been trying to arrange training, but it's very difficult. I've tried all year. Okay.
So who is already confirmed?
So we
aside
have
from
Councillor De Costa and yourself, Councillor De Costa.
Maybe Councillor Peacock?
Yes, I'll check when I get home, but I'm
Okay.
sure there's.
Okay.
Thank you. So hopefully we'll be able to resolve this soon.
You'll send it to me.
Yep.
I'll check in the morning.
This brings us to the end of the meeting. Thank you everyone for your time, and thank you, Ms. Barrett.
Dalia's got her hand up.
Did you want
Sorry.
to comment? Sorry, I see your hand up.
Sorry, it was just to say, Benito Edwards had asked me yesterday, I'll just notify the council that we should have a licensing committee meeting so that we can discuss the Game Nation application. So what happened on the Game Nation application and the subsequent appeal under the Gambling Act. So I don't know if there is room in the diary for there to be a specific meeting set up for that. I think it was for myself.
High Road. Is that the one in Tottenham High Road?
That's the one, Councillor, yes.
It's outside there every night.
Is this something you can take away, Naz? To see if you can find a slot in the agenda.
Yeah, are you saying a licensing committee?
Yes, I think it was more a lessons learned kind of a meeting to be held with the licensing committee around gambling.
Okay, we can do that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Naz, and thanks, Ms. Barrett. We'll find a slot for that. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah, well, Sue,
Yes,
few more.
Lemon, honey, and whiskey. More whiskey.
Done tonight.
Yeah.